The crystalline halls of Zentara Prime hummed with tension as Ambassador Kim Wubin adjusted his formal diplomatic robes one final time. Beside him, Dr. Park Jimin clutched her datapad containing humanity's scientific achievements, while General Lee Dongwook maintained his stoic expression despite the weight of the moment. Her voice barely audible in the vast waiting chamber. Every cultural exchange, every technological demonstration, every peace treaty we've brokered in our own system, Ubin nodded grimly, through the translucent walls. They could see the alien delegates of the Galactic Council beings of various forms and colors engaged in heated discussion. Altarians with their flowing tentacles gestured wildly, while the crystalline vegan representatives pulsed with agitated light patterns. Hours passed. Finally, the great doors opened with a resonant chime that seemed to echo through the chamber like a funeral bell. High Counselor Nexus, a towering figure with skin like polished obsidian, approached the human delegation. His 4 eyes regarded them with what might have been pity. "The wait is over," Nexus spoke, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. The translator device around his neck turned his alien words into perfect Korean, then English. The Galactic Council has made its decision about Earth's request to join us. Wubin stepped forward, his diplomatic training keeping his voice steady. "We are ready to hear your decision, High Counselor." Behind Nexus, the other council members filed into the chamber. The Altarian delegates' tentacles had stopped moving, hanging limp like dead snakes. The vegan crystal beings had dimmed to a dull gray color. Even the floating gas creatures from the Helix Nebula seemed smaller, their usual bright colors now muted and sad. "Your species has shown remarkable growth," Nexus continued, his 4 eyes never leaving the human faces. "Your technology advances. Quickly your art moves, even our oldest hearts. Your mathematics solve problems we thought impossible." Gimin felt a spark of hope. These words sounded positive. Maybe all their hard work had paid off. "However," Nexus said, and that single word crushed all hope in the room, "the Council cannot ignore your history. War after war on your home planet. Weapons that could destroy entire cities. Your own world nearly died from your carelessness. We learned from those mistakes." Dongwook spoke for the first time, his military bearing making his words sharp and clear. "We have not had a major war in 50 years. We work together now." "50 years is nothing," replied the Altarian delegate, its tentacles curling with disgust. "My people have lived in peace for 3,000 years. The vegans have never known war at all. How can we trust a species that still remembers how to make nuclear bombs?" Wubin felt his carefully prepared arguments crumbling. "Our weapons are for defense only now. We have shown you our peace treaties, our cooperation programs, words on paper," interrupted the gas creature delegate, its voice like wind through leaves. "But your nature remains the same. You're predators trying to convince prey that you have become vegetarians." The chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the crystal walls. Gimin looked down at her datapad filled with humanity's greatest achievements. Art that had made alien beings weep. Music that had moved creatures with no ears. Scientific discoveries that had advanced galactic knowledge by centuries. None of it mattered now. "The Galactic Council's decision is final," Nexus announced. "Earth's application for membership is denied. Furthermore, your species will be restricted to your solar system. No human ship may leave the area around your sun without our permission. You're making us prisoners?" Wubin's diplomatic mask finally slipped, showing the anger and hurt beneath. "We are protecting the galaxy," Nexus replied without emotion. "Your solar system has everything you need to survive. You may grow and learn within those boundaries. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your violent nature has truly changed, we will reconsider." The vegan delegate pulsed once with pale light. "All trade with human worlds will stop immediately. All communication channels will be closed. We'll have no contact with galactic civilization until we decide otherwise." Dongwook stepped forward, his hand instinctively moving toward where his weapon would be if he carried one. And if we refuse? If we try to leave our system anyway? The Altarian's tentacles spread wide in what might have been a smile. Then you will discover why the galaxy needs protection from dangerous species. Our patrol ships are already moving to your system's edge. They have orders to destroy any human vessel that tries to cross the boundary. Gimmon felt tears starting in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of these alien judges. We came here in peace. We offered friendship, knowledge, cooperation, and you turn us away like criminals. You are not criminals, Nexus said, and for a moment his voice seemed almost gentle. You are simply what you are. The galaxy has room for many kinds of life, but some kinds must be kept separate from others. This is not punishment. This is necessity. The great doors opened again, and alien guards entered to escort the humans out. As they walked through the crystal halls that had seemed so beautiful when they arrived, everything now looked cold and hostile. Other alien beings stopped to stare at them, some with curiosity, others with fear, and a few with what might have been sympathy. At the exit, Nexus spoke one final time. Your ship will be escorted to the edge of our space. From there you may return to Earth. I suggest you use the journey home to prepare your people for a long period of solitude. As their ship lifted off from Zentara Prime, Wubin watched the beautiful crystal city shrink below them. 23 years, he said quietly. That's how long we've dreamed of joining the galactic community. The dream isn't dead, Dongwook replied, his soldier's mind already working on possibilities. It's just changed shape. They think we're dangerous now. Let's see how they feel about that choice when they really need us. 23 years had passed since the rejection. Dr. Yoon Hajin stood in the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the alien patrol ships drift like silent sentinels at the edge of their solar system. The young scientist had been born into this isolation, knowing no galaxy beyond their prison walls. Another probe attempt? Asked Commander Choi Soo-young, joining him at the viewport. The 15th this year, Hajin confirmed, adjusting his thick-rimmed glasses. Same result as always, they destroyed it the moment it crossed the heliopause. Behind them, the station buzzed with activity. Earth's isolation had forced an unprecedented level of cooperation among nations. Resource scarcity had driven innovation to incredible heights. The closed-loop ecosystems, the fusion reactors, quantum computers all born from necessity when alien technology was denied to them. Director Kim wants to see the weapons division reports, Soo-young said, her tone carefully neutral. Hajin sighed and turned away from the window. The alien ships never moved, never changed position, just waited out there like metal vultures, ready to shoot down anything that tried to leave. I'll send the data up to him in an hour. As they walked through the station corridors, Hajin remembered the stories his parents told him about the time before. When humans still believed they might join the galactic community, when they thought the aliens were friends who just needed more time to trust them. Those days seemed like fairy tales now. Did you see the new fusion plant came online yesterday? Soo-young asked, trying to change the subject to something less depressing. The one on Mars? Yes. I helped design the cooling system. Hajin smiled a little. At least their prison was getting more comfortable. We're producing 3 times more power than we need now. Good thing, too, with all the new projects starting. Up, they passed through the agricultural section, where massive hydroponic gardens fed the station's crew. Everything was recycled here, every drop of water, every breath of air, every scrap of organic matter. The aliens had cut them off from galactic trade completely, so humans had learned to waste nothing. In the research labs, dozens of scientists worked on projects that would have amazed the galaxy outside. Dr. Lee Minho was testing a new kind of metal that could repair itself when damaged. Across the hall, Engineer Park Sora had built computers that used light instead of electricity to think faster than anything humans had ever made before. The isolation has made us creative, Hajin said as they watched a team of robotics experts building machines that could work in the vacuum of space without any protective suits. Creative and angry, Soo-young replied quietly. That was the thing nobody talked about much, but everyone felt. The anger. 23 years of being treated like dangerous animals in a cage. 23 years of watching alien ships patrol. their borders like prison guards. The older generation still held hope for diplomacy, but the younger humans, the ones born after the rejection, felt differently. They took the elevator down to the restricted levels where Director Kim Dal-soo waited for them. The Weapons Research Division was kept separate from the civilian projects, but everyone knew it existed. In the early years after the rejection, Earth's leaders had tried to stay peaceful, hoping the aliens would change their minds. But as the years passed and the alien patrol ships never left, even the most peaceful humans began to think about protection. "The new antimatter containment system is working perfectly," Kim reported as they entered his office. Behind him, screens showed data that Hajin barely understood. "We can store 50 times more energy than before, and the release mechanism is incredibly precise." Soo-young nodded. As a military commander, she understood the implications better than Hajin did. "What about the shield generators?" "Even better news there. The quantum field can deflect anything the aliens have shown us so far. Their patrol ships use energy weapons that are powerful but predictable. Our shields can absorb that energy and use it to make themselves stronger." Hajin felt uncomfortable talking about weapons, but he understood the necessity. The aliens had made it clear that humans were prisoners, not guests. If someone locks you in a room, you start thinking about the lock. "There's something else," Kim continued, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "The deep space monitoring stations have been picking up strange signals from outside the galaxy. Something big is moving out there." "How big?" Soo-young asked. "We're not sure. The signals are unlike anything we've ever seen. Whatever it is, it's consuming entire star systems as it moves." The room fell silent. Through the reinforced windows, they could see Earth hanging in space below them. Blue and peaceful, and completely unaware that something terrible might be coming toward their galaxy. "The aliens detected it too?" Hajin asked. "We think so. Their patrol patterns have changed in the last few months. They're more nervous, more alert. They still haven't tried to contact us." Soo-young laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course not. We're too dangerous to talk to, remember? Even if the galaxy is ending, they won't ask the prisoners for help." Kim pulled up another screen showing weapon designs that looked like something from a science fiction movie. "Maybe that's their mistake. They locked us away to keep us from becoming dangerous. But isolation has made us more dangerous than they ever imagined." "What do you mean?" Hajin asked. "They have rules about warfare, traditions about how fights should be conducted, honor codes and ancient agreements about what weapons are acceptable. But we've been alone for 23 years, building whatever we needed to survive. We don't follow their rules because we never learned them." Outside the station, the alien patrol ships continued their endless watch, not knowing that the humans they guarded had become something entirely new, something that might be the galaxy's salvation or its destruction, depending on how the next few years unfolded. "They wanted to keep us isolated until we became peaceful," Soo-young said, watching the ships through the window. "Instead, they gave us time to become something they never expected." "What's that?" Hajin asked. "Truly free." The first distress signal reached Earth's monitoring stations on a Tuesday morning. Communications Officer Song Da-bin was halfway through her coffee when the quantum array lit up with an emergency transmission from the Cygnus sector. "This is Admiral Nexus of the Galactic Defense Fleet." The translated message crackled with static and interference. "All civilized worlds respond to this emergency broadcast. Outer Rim colonies have gone dark. We are facing an unprecedented..." The signal cut to static. Director Park Jun-ho arrived at the monitoring station within minutes. His silver hair disheveled from sleep. Around him, technicians worked frantically to boost the signal and filter out the interference. "How long since the transmission originated?" he asked Da-bin. 17 hours, sir." "Whatever happened in Cygnus, we're seeing it well after the fact." Da-bin had never heard such fear in an alien voice before. Admiral Nexus was the same being who had sentenced humanity to isolation 23 years ago. Back then, his voice had been cold and certain. Now it shook with terror. More signals trickled. In over the following days, each more desperate than the last, The translations painted a picture of terror. Entire star systems consumed by something the aliens called the Void Swarm. Fleets of council ships overwhelmed and converted into something else entirely. Play the Altarian transmission again, Junho ordered, rubbing his tired eyes. He had not slept in 2 days, listening to the galaxy scream for help. The voice that came through the speakers was barely recognizable as language. The Altarian pilot was crying, its tentacles making wet slapping sounds against the ship's controls. "The stars are going out," it wailed. "The swarm takes everything. Our ships, our planets, our people, they become part of it. They become hungry." Like it in the background of the transmission, they could hear alarms blaring and the sound of metal tearing apart. Then silence. "That's the 15th colony ship we've lost contact with," reported technician Kim Jae-won, his young face pale with shock. "The swarm is moving faster than anything we've ever recorded." Junho stared at the star map displayed on the main screen. Red zones marked the systems that had gone silent, a growing cancer spreading through the galaxy's outer regions. Each red dot had been home to billions of living beings just days ago. "Sir," Dobbin called out, "we're getting a priority transmission from Luna Station. General Nam wants an emergency meeting." The war room at Luna Station buzzed with nervous energy when Junho arrived. General Nam Tae-hyan stood at the center, his weathered face grim as death. Around the table sat Earth's top military and scientific minds, all staring at holographic displays showing the galaxy's slow destruction. "The situation is worse than we first thought," Nam began without introduction. "Dr. Lee, show them what we've learned."
Actor Lee Sora,
Head of Xenobiology Research, activated her display. Three-dimensional models of the swarm appeared above the table, writhing masses of metal and flesh that hurt to look at directly. "The swarm doesn't just destroy," she explained, her voice clinically calm, despite the horror she was describing. "It converts everything it touches into more of itself. Planets, ships, even living beings become part of the collective." "How is that possible?" asked Admiral Ko Yoon-sik, leaning forward to study the models. "We're not entirely sure, but the energy signatures suggest some kind of quantum restructuring at the molecular level. It's like a virus that infects matter itself, rewriting the basic rules of what something is." Junho felt his stomach turn as he watched the simulation play out. A beautiful garden world, green and blue and alive, touched by the swarm and transformed into a writhing mass of hungry metal in seconds. "The council fleets aren't just losing battles," Lee continued. "They're making the swarm stronger. Every ship that falls becomes part of the enemy force. Every weapon fired gets absorbed and studied and improved upon." "It's learning," Nam said quietly, "getting smarter with every victory. The aliens' own strength is being turned against them." The room fell silent except for the hum of the station's life support systems. Through the viewport, they could see the alien patrol ships still maintaining their watch at the system's edge, completely unaware that their entire civilization was collapsing behind them. "Have they tried to contact us?" asked Commander Choi Soo-young. Nam shook his head. "Nothing. Even facing extinction, they won't break their precious quarantine. We're still too dangerous to talk to. Maybe they don't think we can help," suggested Dr. Im Ba-Yang-ho from the Weapons Division. "To them, we're still primitive savages with nuclear bombs and chemical weapons." Ko laughed bitterly. "If only they knew what we've really been building down in the deep labs." Junho studied the tactical displays showing swarm movement patterns. The thing was smart, but it followed predictable rules. It consumed, converted, and moved on, like a plague that had learned to think. "How long before it reaches the core systems?" he asked. Lee consulted her calculations. "At current speed, maybe 18 months. But if it accelerates, if it learns to move faster, ... less time," Nam finished. "Maybe a lot less." The implications hung heavy in the air. The Galactic Council, the same aliens who had locked humanity away like dangerous animals, were about to be eaten by something far more dangerous than humans had ever been. Sir Dobbin's voice came through the comm system, urgent and frightened. "We're receiving another transmission. This one's different." The message, when it played, came from a single surviving ship fleeing the destruction of the vegan homeworld. The crystal being's light pulsed, weak and dying as it spoke. "The council worlds are falling," it whispered. "The swarm learns too fast. It takes our weapons and makes them better, takes our ships and makes them stronger. We cannot fight something that grows stronger from fighting us." The transmission ended with the sound of the ship's hull being torn apart by something that had once been beautiful. "They're losing," Junho said, stating the obvious truth that nobody wanted to speak aloud. "The question is," Nam replied, "what do we do about it?" Counselor Vex of the Zentari delegation materialized on the holographic display, his crystalline form flickering with the strain of long-distance quantum communication. Behind him, the ruins of what had once been the Council. Chambers on Zentara Prime served as a stark reminder of how far the mighty had fallen. "Humanity," he began, his translated voice carrying decades of suppressed desperation. "The Galactic Council formally requests your assistance in combating the Void Swarm threat." Admiral Ko Yun-Zik exchanged glances with the other members of Earth's High Command gathered in the secure briefing room. The request they had waited 23 years to hear had finally come too late for the billions already consumed. But perhaps not too late for the survivors. "Tell him we'll consider it," President Han instructed the communications officer. Dr. Shin the Jin leaned forward from her position at the science advisory panel. "Sir, with respect, we've been considering it for months. Our response is ready." Han nodded slowly. The decision had been made weeks ago, when the first swarm tendrils began probing the inner systems. But the galaxy that had rejected them deserved to understand the full scope of what they were asking. Counselor Vex Han addressed the alien directly. "Before we discuss terms, you should understand what you're requesting. We are not offering ships or soldiers. We are offering something far more significant." The crystalline being's form pulsed with confusion. "Please explain." "We need military support against the swarm." "Your ships? Your weapons?" "No," Han interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "You need our knowledge, our understanding of how to fight an enemy that learns from every attack." Communications Officer Song Dabin watched the alien's reaction carefully. Even through the hologram, she could see Vex's confusion. The Council still thought of humans as primitive beings with simple weapons. "Your fleets failed because you fought the swarm like a normal enemy," explained General Nam Tehan, activating a tactical display. "You sent ships to shoot at it, used your best weapons to try to destroy it. But the swarm doesn't just get destroyed, it learns." "We are aware of its adaptive capabilities," Vex replied, his crystal form dimming with exhaustion. "No, you're not," Dr. Chang Sumin interrupted from her position at the weapons research station. "You think adaptation means it gets stronger armor when you shoot it. You think it means it moves faster when you chase it. But that's not what's happening." She activated another display showing complex mathematical equations that made even the human observers squint. "The swarm exists in a state of quantum flux. It doesn't just change its physical form, it changes the rules of physics around itself." Vex's crystalline body flickered as he processed. "This information, such technology would require theoretical understanding beyond our current knowledge." "Beyond your current knowledge? Yes," agreed Admiral Ko with a cold smile. "But you locked us away for 23 years. We had time to learn things you never imagined." Behind the alien, the ruins of Zentara Prime stretched into the distance. The beautiful crystal spires that had once housed the council chambers were now twisted metal and broken glass. The swarm had been there, had consumed and converted the greatest symbol of galactic civilization. "Show him the test results," Han ordered. Dr. Lee Sora activated a recording from the Deep Space Laboratories. The hologram showed a small swarm construct, a writhing mass of metal and organic matter about the size of a house. It pulsed with hungry intelligence, reaching out with tentacles to consume everything around it. "This is a swarm fragment we captured 3 months ago," Sora explained. "Watch what happens when we use conventional weapons." The recording showed energy beams striking the creature. It absorbed the energy, grew larger, and began to pulse with the same frequency as the weapons that had attacked it. Within minutes, it was firing the same energy beams back at its attackers. "Now watch what happens when we use our weapons," Sora continued. The scene changed. Instead of energy beams, The humans fired something that looked like small silver spheres. They struck the swarm construct and seemed to do nothing at first. The creature continued to move, continued to pulse with life. Then it began to change. The swarm construct started to shake. Its tentacles curled inward. It's the hungry intelligence. In its movements became confusion, then panic. Within minutes, it had torn itself apart, consuming its own body in a frenzy of self-destruction. "What did you do to it?" Vex asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We gave it a virus," Dr. Chang explained. "Not a biological virus, but a quantum virus. It uses the swarm's own learning ability against itself. Instead of teaching it to adapt, we taught it to forget how to exist." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had not just found a way to fight the swarm. They had found a way to make it destroy itself. The swarm's greatest strength is its ability to learn and adapt, General Nam continued. But learning requires memory, and memory can be corrupted. We've learned how to rewrite the swarm's memories, to make it forget what it is and what it's supposed to do. Vex's holographic form flickered more rapidly now, his desperation growing. "How many ships do you have with these weapons? How quickly can you deploy them?" "That depends," Han said, leaning back in his chair. "On what you're willing to give us in return. Anything the Council will agree to any terms." "Will you?" Han's voice turned cold. 23 years ago, you called us too dangerous for civilized space. You locked us in our own solar system like criminals. You refused to trade with us, to speak with us, to even acknowledge our existence. That was a mistake. Yes, it was. Han interrupted. "And now you want us to save you from your own mistake. You want the dangerous humans to fight the monster you couldn't handle." The hologram showed Vex consulting with other figures outside the transmission range. When he returned, his crystal form seemed somehow smaller, more fragile. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Complete freedom of movement throughout the galaxy," Han replied. "Full access to all trade routes and technologies. Recognition of Earth as an equal member of whatever government comes after the Council. You're asking for control of the galaxy in exchange for our salvation. We're asking for what should have been offered 23 years ago." Han's voice carried the weight of decades of rejection and isolation. "Respect. The only difference is that now you need us more than we need you." Through the quantum link, alarms could be heard blaring in the background of Vex's transmission. Another system had fallen while they talked. "Agreed," Vex said, his voice barely audible. "When can your forces begin operations?" Admiral Ko smiled for the first time in the conversation, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Our forces are already in position. We've been tracking the swarm for months, waiting for you to ask for help. You knew we would come to you?" "We knew you would have to," Han replied. "The question was whether there would be anything left of the galaxy worth saving by the time you swallowed your pride." The transmission flickered as Vex's form began to fade. "Thank you," he whispered. "Whatever our past mistakes, thank you for not abandoning us." "We're not doing this for you," Han said as the connection ended. "We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, something you never learned." The Earth's vengeance emerged from quantum fold space at the edge of the Centauri system like a predator materializing from shadow. Captain Ru Ji-hoon stood on the bridge, watching the tactical displays populate with swarm signatures, thousands of converted vessels and biomechanical constructs that had once been 3 different species' homeworlds. "Weapon status?" he asked calmly. "All quantum disruptors online," reported Lieutenant Kim Nari from the weapons station.
Ulti.
"Temporal mine deployment ready. The neural cascade generators are charging." Behind them, the rest of Earth's fleet began, dropping out of fold space sleek vessels that bore no resemblance to traditional galactic ship designs. Each had been built from scratch using technologies developed during the isolation years, incorporating theories that the Council's scientists had deemed impossible. On the main display, the swarm began to respond to their presence. Massive tendrils of converted matter reached toward the human ships, adaptive armor rippling with anticipation of new prey to analyze and overcome. "Let them come," Ji-hoon ordered, his voice steady despite the horror before them. "I'll just execute protocol." 7. The swarm creatures moved with terrible grace. What had once been a beautiful Altarian colony ship now writhed through space like a metal snake, its hull covered in pulsing organic growths. Former vegan crystal beings had been twisted into sharp-edged weapons that glowed with hungry light. Even the peaceful gas creatures from the Helix Nebula had been corrupted into floating masses of acidic vapor. "Sir, they're trying to communicate with us," reported Communications Officer Park Hyun-woo, his face pale as he listened to the signals. "The converted beings, they're still partially aware. They're begging us to kill them." Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. The swarm didn't just consume its victims. It kept them alive and conscious while using their bodies as weapons. It was cruelty beyond imagination. "Block those frequencies," he ordered. "Focus on the mission." The first wave of human weapons struck the swarm formations and seemed to have no effect. The energy beams passed through the creatures harmlessly. The missiles were absorbed and converted into more swarm matter. To any observer, it would look like the humans were failing just as badly as everyone else. But this was exactly what they had planned. "The swarm is analyzing our weapons," reported Dr. Yang Yunsu from the science station.
Yes.
"It's incorporating the energy patterns into its own systems. Estimated adaptation time, 43 seconds. Perfect." Ji-hoon smiled grimly. "Begin phase 2. What the swarm didn't understand was that those failed weapons had been delivery systems. Hidden inside each energy beam and missile had been something far more dangerous than explosives or plasma. They had carried information, data, instructions. The quantum virus began to spread through the swarm network. "Neural cascade is propagating," Yang reported, her voice tense with concentration. "The virus is using their own communication system to spread itself. Every time they try to share information about our weapons, they're actually sharing the virus." On the display, the swarm creatures began to act strangely. Their movements became erratic. The converted ships started firing on each other. Organic growths on their hulls began to wither and die. "What's happening to them?" asked Nari, watching in fascination as a massive swarm construct began tearing itself apart. "We're teaching them to forget," Ji-hoon explained. "The virus corrupts their memory systems. They forget how to maintain their converted forms. They forget how to work together. Eventually, they forget how to exist at all." The battle, if it could be called that, was unlike anything in galactic history. The humans didn't fight the swarm directly. Instead, they turned the swarm's own intelligence against itself. Every adaptation the creatures made only spread the virus further. Every attempt to learn from the human attacks only accelerated their own destruction. Within 3 hours, the entire swarm formation in the Centauri system had collapsed. The converted creatures had either destroyed themselves or reverted to inert matter. The space around the former colonies was filled with debris, but it was clean debris, dead debris. The hungry intelligence that had animated it was gone. "Ships report successful completion of Protocol 7, Nari announced. "No human casualties. The swarm presence in this system has been eliminated." Similar reports came in from across the galaxy over the following weeks. Earth's fleet moved from system to system, using their quantum virus to cleanse the swarm wherever they found it. The aliens who had once dismissed humans as primitive barbarians watched in awe as humanity accomplished what their combined civilizations could not. 3 months later, President Han Jinwoo stood in the newly constructed council chambers on Luna Station. The symbolism was not lost on anyone present. The former outcasts now hosted the survivors of galactic civilization. The final swarm nexus was destroyed 6 hours ago, Han announced to the assembled alien delegates. Deep space scans show no remaining traces of the quantum signatures. The threat has been eliminated. The aliens listened in silence. Species that had once numbered in billions were now reduced to small refugee populations. The proud Altarians, the ancient Xantari, the peaceful vegans, all dependent on human protection and generosity. "The galaxy will be rebuilt," Han continued. "But it will be rebuilt differently. The old council, with its prejudices and fears, is finished. What we create now will be based on cooperation, not rejection. On inclusion, not isolation." Counselor Vex, His crystal form, now dull and cracked, raised a hand. "What of those who wish to return to their traditional territories?" "You're free to go wherever you choose," Han replied. "Understand that the galaxy has changed. The old ways, the old thinking that led to this crisis, cannot be allowed to return." As the session ended, Admiral Ko approached the president. "Any regrets about how we handled this?" Han looked out through the viewport at Earth, hanging in space below them. 8 ships from dozens of species moved freely through the system, their crews learning human technologies while sharing their own knowledge. The prison had become the capital. "They called us dangerous 23 years ago," Han said quietly. They were right. But they never understood that sometimes the galaxy needs dangerous people to protect it from things far worse than we could ever be. The galaxy had rejected humanity once, fearing what they might become. Now they knew. Humanity had become their salvation, their protectors, and their new leaders. It ought to be a lesson the survivors would never forget. In the end, Earth had not conquered the galaxy through violence or force. They had inherited it through competence, claimed it through necessity, and would rule it through the simple truth that when everyone else had failed, dangerous humans had succeeded. The galaxy would never make the mistake of turning away from humanity again.